people look at me and think they see one thing, but really I'm just like they are.
Right.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
I was told you're a hard-hitting journalist, so I should be ready.
So anyway, well, this is all new to me. This is all new. I mean, I know what LGBTQ stands for. I lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and the Q is either queer, questioning, or quizzical. I don't know which.
I like quizzical, actually.
Okay.
I still to this day have heard it used both ways, queer or questioning.
Okay.
And one of the interesting things that we can talk more about if you want is that as a movement, we're making this up as we go along, just like any movement does. There's this huge impulse to try to have all of our ducks in a row and try to be consistent and try to, show our best face to people. But it's also important to remember that words are not human hearts, if you know what I mean. Vocabulary is not necessarily the human experience. So that's also why I don't get, too upset if people use the wrong word or say the wrong thing, that sort of stuff.
Okay. Well, yes, this is all. I had never heard of binary before. So, or non-binary. Does that mean someone that doesn't identify being male or female in their gender?
Yeah. So binary is very common, a very common term in mathematics, obviously, meaning two. Anything on, off, light, dark, daytime, nighttime, right, is considered a binary. And the way that people grow up and the way that they usually think about gender is just with two boxes, man or woman. And just like we were talking about a moment ago, this is a whole new way. The word non-binary first appeared on the internet in 2013. So there have always been people like me, but this idea of talking about it like we are not the two that people are used to is relatively recent. And so anyone calling themselves non-binary is simply a person who's not man and not woman. And that's me.
Have you always been non-binary?
I knew I was like this in kindergarten.
Oh.
I actually got in trouble in kindergarten two different ways. Well, I'm sure lots of different ways because I'm such a big personality. I would take all the dresses during dress up and I would steal them and I wouldn't let anybody else have them when I was in kindergarten. And I would get in trouble for that. But also, I look back and my kindergarten teacher was really dedicated. And she took her own time and cut out of felt two characters, a little boy and a little girl. And she also cut out all these felt clothes and accessories. So we were supposed to, as kids, I remember this vividly, we were supposed to, in kindergarten, look out the window and then choose the clothing for those felt characters. And we were supposed to put a sweater on them if it was cold outside, or give them an umbrella if it was raining, stuff like that. But I would always get in trouble because I would put all the clothes on all the people that they weren't supposed to be on. And I just remember vividly not understanding why adults were so upset by me and upset by that.
Did your parents realize what was going on?
Yes, interestingly enough, my mom is a pastor. She's a Lutheran pastor. And I remember sitting in church, and I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but I remember sitting in the pew in church, and we were always a religious family, and she became a pastor when I was in high school. And in pastor school, she was told, if you're going to preach, you should lower your voice. Speaking about gender. So she was told, when you speak and tell stories, about the Bible and preach, you should have a lower voice, because people will only take a lower voice seriously, a man's voice. So you should try to sound more like a man. She was told that in school.
Okay.
I was so inspired at that time in my life by her, because she said, no, I'm going to be me, and I'm going to sound like me, and I'm going to preach.
Uh-huh.
And you know what you just made me think of? I guess I'm kind of following in her footsteps, right? I'm going to be me, and I'm going to have a message.
When did you start to decide to come out to people, the public, and let them know what you are? And I'm sorry, Jeffrey, it's hard for me to say they and them when I see a singular person. I hope you understand. Right now you're a she, but you're not. So you're Jeffrey. And so
Yeah.
when did you decide to make it public to help other people?
Well, I'm going to answer that in a second, Donna, but I have to
Okay.
praise you. I have to compliment you first. This is a personal one-to-one conversation. And this is what I enjoy the most. And luckily, it's really rare in English to refer to somebody while you're talking to them. So we're in really comfortable territory right now. Unless you want to tell a story about me to my face, then we can talk about pronouns and stuff. But the interesting thing about pronouns is we use they. I don't know if you noticed this about English. We use they to talk about one person all the time. Who left those papers on your desk? I hope they come and get them. Who left their umbrella here? I hope they come and get it. Whose wallet is this in the lost and found? I hope they come and pick it up.
Uh-huh.
So there's this handy way, and all we were doing in our movement was thinking, well, gee, since somebody's already using this neutral pronoun that's not he or she for one person, let's just ask them to use it for us. So anyway, a bit of trivia.
Uh-huh.
I was so charmed by you, I forgot the question. What is it? Do you remember?
Oh, yes.
Coming out publicly.
Yes. I had to think too.
Because we're just so enamored with each other. We forget we're supposed to be on an outline and a schedule with our questions. I came out on Vine, which was a social media platform, around 2013, 2014. So I was one of the first people in public to use the word non-binary, and one of the first people in public to use they, them pronouns and talk to people about it.
Uh-huh.
And the interesting thing is, I know I don't look like it. I'm 43 right now. So I was absolutely an adult and not a teenager and not a young person when I started using language like this.
Was it difficult in high school for you? Did you have?
What do you think, Donna?
I think it might have been.
Yeah, the kids were not. And I write about this in my book.
Okay.
The kids were not, falling all over themselves to be kind to me. And that is often the LGBTQ experience. But I have to say, today in this Zoom, I feel so well taken care of, and you've been so kind to me. So very different than my high school experience.
Well, good. Yes. I was a school teacher for many years, and my husband too. So we know how children can be, and I'm sure that you encountered some rough times, but hopefully you're enlightening people too now. So
yeah. May I ask what you taught?
I
what
taught
subject?
third grade, which for me was a perfect grade, third grade. They're not quite babies, but they still are ready now to start learning a lot, which at one time it was cursive handwriting too. They kind of taken that away, but all of the subjects, were introduced in the third grade, and they were wonderful children. They still loved me, and I loved, and could hug them and all of that. And
I know, and I was going to ask, they're not, old enough to be really sassy with you yet
no,
in the third grade. So we like that.
yeah,
Yeah, you know what you made me think of, and I don't know if you had experience with this, is people sometimes compare people like me to something like being left-handed, in that there was a time when that was really stigmatized, and the culture went through this revolution of it not being so stigmatized anymore, and people could come out as left-handed and feel included, and like it wasn't a big deal anymore. And I feel like with people like me, that's hopefully where we're headed soon in the next few years.
right. We have a son that's ambidextrous, and he writes with his right hand, but he does everything else with his left hand. And he probably would have written better with his left hand if he'd been allowed to do that, So he eats with his left hand, he plays tennis with his left hand and all of that, but writes with his right hand. So and my mother was a little bit ambidextrous too. So that's an unusual thing. So
Yeah, and the number, once left-handedness became less of a stigma, less stigmatized, the number of left-handed people in society took a jump.
uh-huh.
And we can assume that's because they were always there, but now they can talk about it.
Uh-huh.
And we're actually excitingly, we're in the same revolution right now with people like me.
Right.
You're seeing more and more people talk about it, and we've always been here, but we're just coming out, as you said, more and more now today. I mean, do you know how exciting and delighted I was to get the invitation to come and talk to you?
Oh, good. I didn't know. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I was told that you're basically in charge. You run the place. Anything Donna says, you gotta do it. I also heard a rumor that you basically kind of gave yourself the lead in the play, which I really like that energy. You cast yourself. Is that true?
Well, I didn't know I did, but I enjoyed it.
You're like, I'm going to organize a play and I'm going to put myself in it. I really like that. That's kind of what I do. I mean, I have my social media and I put myself in as the star.
Well, good. As far as a touchy situation, and I wonder how you handle it, the public bathroom issue.
Yeah.
If I saw you going into a male bathroom, I'd think, oh, she made a mistake, and went into so how do you think that we should handle the public bathroom situations?
I feel like every single person should have complete privacy, just like they do in Europe. Why not? Just have your own stall. Wouldn't it be nice? If you've ever, I remember being in Italy and being a little shocked. The door on the stall goes all the way to the floor, all the way to the ceiling. Imagine.
That's what one of our sons said. That's what they should be. Have you completely enclosed in a stall with the
absolute privacy for everybody,
and down to the floor and the door too. Then there would be no problem.
Yeah, and I'm glad. Oh, say that last part again.
You make them
I didn't
kind
hear
of
it.
soundproof a little bit, There wouldn't be a urinal in them, but that would be okay.
If it was soundproof, you couldn't hear me singing in there.
Right.
Which I like to do, just to calm myself. No, I'm glad you called it a touchy subject, because it is a place where people feel vulnerable. And I just want everybody to feel loved and cared for and not like they need to feel vulnerable. And that's absolutely one way to do it. And whenever I go to a restaurant or something, I don't know how it is in Missouri, But here in California, a lot of places just have just one bathroom with one toilet in it. You shut the door and that's it, right? And people go in one at a time, and that's complete privacy. And I think that's really good way to do it. But it speaks to a larger issue, which I think you were really brilliantly hinting at. People like me, in my opinion, deserve to be accommodated in society. And it's my opinion that we should be accommodated without taking anything away from anybody else. And I would want everyone to be accommodated and to feel safe and to be happy in society. That's my philosophy.
Right.
And something like, where are you going to be? That's something that everybody needs in their life.
You're not trying to make somebody like me that, okay, I've read the word cisgender. I'm cisgender. I definitely identify as a female. You're not trying to make me into a transgender person. So that's good.
That's right.
We each need to be ourselves.
Yeah. Yep. And the word cisgender, I'm so glad you brought it up, is, how good are you at math? I'm abysmal.
I'm not great, but I can do some.
Okay, good. Yeah, you were a teacher, so that's good. In the STEM, right, science, math, the words cis and trans are used as technical terms. And trans means on the other side of, and cis means on the same side of. So a good example, they use it to refer to like electrons. There's one that's on the other side of the atom or whatever you're talking about, and there's one that's on your side, cis. But also geography, I had forgotten. So a transatlantic trip is one that crosses to the other side of the Atlantic. And you can also say in geography, a cis-Atlantic trip, which would go like from Philly to New York, right? Stays on the same side of the Atlantic. And sometimes people encounter these new words and think that I'm trying to change their ideology, or that I'm trying to push an agenda or something like that. But they really just are those pure technical terms. We put the word in front of gender, and transgender is somebody who's gone to another side. And cisgender is somebody like you, somebody who stayed the same as their birth certificate.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Transgender is what I read is that one that does not identify with the gender that was assigned at birth. Is that right?
Yeah. Are you have you been hanging out with teenagers on TikTok?
I've been trying to study.
You got all the terminology down.
Well,
yeah.
But anyway, I've been trying to learn. I want to learn. So
yeah, so I'll say it because you're talking my language, and I want everybody watching this to be super included, and not everybody is as amazing as you are. Not everybody did their research. So let me go back a step. My birth certificate says MALE, male. It's in a filing cabinet in Pennsylvania, my birth certificate. And if you pulled it out, it would have the Pennsylvania state flag on it, and it would say male, MALE. And I've come out as non-binary. So that's a transition away from what I was. And you phrased it perfectly. So in our movement, we're saying the gender I was assigned at birth, because I was a baby. I didn't have anything to say about it at the time. So that is a change. And someone like Laverne Cox or Caitlyn Jenner, they've gone from one of those binary genders, like we talked about before, on their birth certificate to a different one. So they went from MALE, male, to a woman. And that's also trans.
did they use some type of physical enhancement, physical surgeries, physical hormones, or something to change them?
Did Caitlyn or
transitioning yourself? I mean,
yeah, some people do. There is something what we in the community call HRT, hormone replacement therapy. So there are people who do take hormones to change their body and to change, it will stop you from growing facial hair, stuff like that, soften your skin, stuff like that. If I was to do it, I've chosen not to because, I mean, I'm gorgeous. What would you change, Donna, in how I look? Nothing, right? Perfection. But you can also get surgeries, and some people will do that as well. And it's really, to me, it reminds me of how people like you look amazing, Donna. So I don't know if you've had work done.
No.
But there are a lot of people, right, who get surgery, Botox, and they get things lifted and shifted, right, and stuff like that. It's any human being walking the earth has a lot of choices about how they want to present themselves. And to me, they're all beautiful, and they're all, shouldn't be judged.
So you didn't, I mean, this is nosiness, but you didn't have to do anything physically to transition to your pretty skin and all of that.
I just moisturize.
Okay.
It's true. And I'm wearing a lot of foundation, Donna.
Okay.
That helps.
Well,
You want me to get close in on my crow's feet because I'm 43. You can see that I do have texture in my skin.
You're young. Compared to the people that live here, you are young.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you. I appreciate that. I'll take the compliment anytime I can get it.
Okay, I have a few questions here. Can you tell me what pride is and means to you?
Yes, I sure can. Pride started in 1969. That was when the Stonewall riot was. So, interestingly enough, people sometimes link these things, but there's not necessarily a connection. But Judy Garland had died, and a lot of people who were in the movement were really into her and her music. And so that created sort of a sadness in the movement. But also beyond all of that, and that whether that is a connection or not, people in the movement had sort of gotten a little fed up, a little upset, because a favorite bar that they would go to in New York City called Stonewall had been raided by the police several times. So, and people like me went to this bar, and people that are, all kinds of LGBTQ went to this bar, and the police would just show up and start arresting people and put them in prison, and just for being who they are. And people got upset. And in 1969, in June, people had had enough, and they started to tell the police, no, we're not going with you. And there were several people involved in that night. And it sort of snowballed from that kind of protest that night into parades and public speeches. And over the next few days, it was an event in New York City. And so that started to be celebrated every single June afterwards. And that's why today, many, many, many years later, we're still celebrating Pride and commemorating that one event.
And so one of her signature songs was Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Would that have something to do about the rainbow colors?
Yes, absolutely. And the rainbow is meant to symbolize inclusion, that we all can be different and be in our own stripe of being a human being. But when we come together, it's something very beautiful.
I see. Okay. Now, one of my other questions, Jeffrey, was,
yes, Don, I'm ready.
Does being non-binary or transgender mean you're gay?
Interestingly enough, it can. There are people like me who, so for example, I have a husband, so I'm married to a man who uses he, him pronouns. And the word we use is usually queer because that's very inclusive. And the movement has kind of re-owned that word. It used to be a negative word, but we've decided to use it as a source of pride. for ourselves. Gender is how you identify. So whether you're a man, woman, non-binary, and sexuality is your behavior, who you're with, and how you act. So they are actually two different things. And somebody who is transgender can be straight, gay, what the kids say, pan, or they can actually be asexual, meaning they have no interest at all, or they could be queer, like me. And do you remember when we were talking so much, wonderfully earlier today, when we were talking about how people can be changing their language as they go. And the movement is still in some ways developing the terms we want to use and talking about ourselves in new ways as we go, step by step by step. That is still happening today. So I'm just giving you a view of, 2021, but I'm excited to find out what happens in the coming years as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, for the one in the senior population like I'm in,
yeah,
a lot of the people, their ideas are very ingrained, and it's going to be hard to change. This is going to be a process that's going to take many years probably. But when you think back in 1969, that's not all that far back for all that has happened since then. So for the progress that you've made. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you've encountered this too. I've met teenagers who are very stuck in their ways, who find it hard to change. Yeah. So I'm so glad to have this conversation today, because I hope that if there are folks who, are finding it hard to even encounter or wrap their minds around, that you, Donna, you being so charming and kind and showing people what's possible, that I find you inspiring. So I hope that other people would be inspired too,
Thank you. Did your mother?
I would have loved for you to have been my teacher when I was in 3rd grade.
I would have loved to have had you.
I was an A+ student. I don't know. I don't know if you could tell just from my personality, but I turned in everything on time, if you know what I mean.
I do. I do. It wasn't all watered up and the dog hadn't eaten it and all of that stuff.
Yep.
Did your mother, as a pastor, did she try to explain to people that you were transgender?
Yeah, and she often used me as an example in her preaching. And she did get in trouble with the church for doing that. But eventually they came around, and she didn't get kicked out of the church or anything, but she was one of the pioneers to try to expand the church's acceptance of all LGBTQ people.
Well, good. Well, Jeffrey,
and I think that's partly, I hope, I feel like your friend. I don't know what you would say, but I feel like knowing somebody personally is really a big step.
It is, yes. When you have it in your family or something, you change your ideas. So
I think so, yeah.
Okay, let's see. Are there any issues you face that people might not understand or consider? And what are the relationships between the gay community and the transgender community? A lot of this you have kind of touched on, but anyway, just.
No, it's good to be thorough. And I'll answer in a way that might be surprising for folks. People like me in the last few years, we've gone from people being like, that's weird, what am I looking at? Kind of thrown off by people like me. And now we've sort of transitioned over to a lot of people, as you kind of said already in this interview, instead of being afraid of me, because I'm cute, I'm nothing to fear. Instead of being afraid of me, people have transitioned over to being afraid of saying the wrong thing around me. So using the wrong pronoun or using the wrong term, or saying something that I might be offended or something like that. And it's interesting to me because whether you're in that original place of like, what's that? Or this place over here of, I'm afraid I'll use the wrong word. It's still not, connecting with me on a human level. So I've just been so grateful for our conversation today because I feel like we really connected and had a nice
So,
person-to-person chat, right?
thank you. If there's anything that you want to talk about, that you want to encourage me to know or something, I would appreciate it. I'm looking at my list here. So
no, I just have one question. Can you tell me about your play on Zoom and what part you're playing?
Well,
is this going to be public? Can I sign on to Zoom and see it?
I'm reading the script. The Aero community came out with this pandemic. They've tried to come up with so many things to keep us occupied and entertained. And so they
that's what my friends are doing too. Yeah.
Play called The Old and the Beautiful, like a soap opera.
So it's named after you. Is that what you're saying?
It's a play on words like the young and the beautiful. But anyway, the old and the beautiful. And there can be drama at these senior living areas.
Oh, really? I'm shocked.
How do I support loved ones who are part of the LGBTQ plus community? And I don't know what the plus is after Q, but how do I support loved ones who are part of the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, it's such a good question.
We haven't asked you that we should know.
Yeah, great. I'm happy to answer both of them. If a family member comes out to you, be kind to them. Shocking answer, right? Treat them like a full human being. Ask them, what do you need for support? The most interesting thing about my work is people feel like sometimes the rules of being a decent human being should go out the window when there's a big change, like someone coming out. And of course not. Be the wonderful, beautiful, engaging, gorgeous, good human you are now, and talk to the person. Relate person to person. I think the worst feeling for someone like me is coming out and feeling like you lost everybody. Like being yourself has cost you the humanity that you were used to with your family and your friends. So be a decent human being. And then that last one is there anything else? Kind of a catch-all? Is that what you said?
Right. And while you're talking about that, I was just thinking about something you said on one of your interviews. You said something about, I'm not here to make you comfortable. I'm here to make you uncomfortable. What did you mean by that? Just with the way we are now. I mean, what we believe, to open up ourselves to other ideas. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Are you free? Can you be my publicist, my PR agent? Because you explained it perfectly. That was it. Yeah. I think it was a matter of me calling out the fact that I do make people uncomfortable. And that I'm fine with that. I think probably as a third grade teacher, you made some students go into places in their lives that they didn't want to go. You asked them to expand their ideas of, honestly, of what it means to be them. Like challenging a student who thinks that they're not good at this into growing and making them uncomfortable into a moment of finding out that they are great at what they're doing. So it's that same call to growth that I love so much. And that's what I was talking about.
Okay. And the last question, what Lenny referred to is there anything we haven't asked you that we should know? I mean, something that you were wanting to talk about that we I didn't ask you and that you would like to cover?
Yeah, to sort of, not even sort of, to synthesize everything that we have been talking about and to bring it all full circle and together, I'm a walking metaphor. I'm also a human being, but I'm a walking reflection for people. And hopefully people can see in me that there is nothing wrong with them. I hope to represent that the thing you were told is most wrong with you is actually the thing you can best offer the world. That it's the thing you are here to celebrate about who you are.
And what's the name of your book again?
How to be you.
Okay.
It might be backwards on the screen, but people figure it out.
And so that's maybe what you mean by walking metaphor. You are something that different than what you really appear. Maybe, you could call those puffy clouds marshmallows up in the sky or something. So those are like metaphors or something. So
Yeah, people look at me and think they see one thing, but really I'm just like they are. We're all human beings. We're all
yes.
puffy clouds. Thank you. Thank you, Donna. This was a really brilliant connection. I couldn't be happier.
And I think to myself, what a